I had the privilege of posting this op-ed written by Phil Boyle, the proprietor of Coliseum Comics down in Orlando, Florida, where he warns the comic book industry that it is on the brink of collapse unless major changes are enacted. This is what Mr. Boyle wrote. He said, "It's nearly 2024, and I'm more than concerned. Marvel and DC, you blew it, or maybe you just succeeded in your plan to kill off an American art form of which you've been the able stewards of for 80 years. It's baffling that something so prolific was ushered to the chopping block and executed. Strong accusation, no, just the unvarnished truth as new comic sales find new lows." Yeah, Green Lantern, Alan Scott Green Lantern did not even make it to the top 50, even after the writer, I don't even remember what his name is, Sheridan, said that was begging people to buy his comic in order to spite Comicsgate. Clearly, that did not work. Uh, Nevertheless, Boyle goes on and says, "Worse, you've gutted an army of passionate retailers who've worked in this biz for decades for close to poverty wages in many cases. To put such a system of advocates in every state and major city in America and around much of the world would cost a fortune, but it happened organically to your benefit. And in gratitude, you've strip mined what little profit there was in favor of short-term goals and chasing corporate bonuses. We, the retailers, cultivated the fan base the same way the underappreciated creators created the precious IPs that have made their parent companies obscene amounts of money. It was a biosystem of fans feeding off the Wednesday excitement, eager to spend money on not only the comics that drew them in, but the t-shirts, lunchboxes, and mouse pads with Spider-Man or Batman on them. Fan, retailers, and creators have all suffered under the recent corporate mandates. Where did it go off the rails? It's not such a conundrum to anyone with two active brain cells and a list of back issues they need to complete their runs. Comics, first and foremost, have always been entertainment. Sure, collectible entertainment, which justifies the cost to entertainment ratio, but along the way, the immediate sale and false bolstering of numbers through variant covers, convoluted events, and incessant reboots left the considerations of the fans behind. Character swapping, gender bending, and changing sexual orientation of beloved characters fell flat with the Wednesday Warriors, who supported the industry for decades. The crowd of new readers the changes were meant to attract didn't translate to a one-for-one swap, leaving a declining customer base, something that we have been talking about here ad nauseum for at least half a decade. To make things more difficult on the retail side, in a very deliberate abuse of both the FOC system and retailers' goodwill towards publishers, we constantly have to FOC an issue 2 issues out rather than next issue. This makes ordering a guess. Throw in 4 covers on number 5, then 6 on number 6, one of which is by Art Sherman and another by Scotty Young, and then number 7 has 5 covers with neither cover artist, and number 8 has a celebrity appearance cover. And it's a constant and very deliberate shell game, forcing retailers to guess on nearly every next issue. How do we fix this? Assuming we can pull the canoe back over the waterfall at this point. A friend of mine recently moved into a condo and took up an advisory position on the board. The pool was in need of repair, the roofs needed replacing, and the facades and landscaping had seen better days. There was no money to make the repairs, and the only solution was to add $150 a month to everyone's condo fees to pay for the repairs. The meeting that followed the announcement was less than friendly as people complained about the extra costs. My buddy explained that everyone had been living off the equity in the condos and put no money into the condos, thereby devaluing them. And here we are in the comic industry facing the same conundrum. Marvel and DC have strip mined the comic industry for the better part of a decade, putting no money into the market that sustained them for years. Much like the condo association, an investment is needed by those who lived off the equity for years. If you want a market in 2 years, yes, 2 years tops, then the time to invest is now. What we need to revitalize this market. So he's basically saying if they don't indeed enact these changes, the comic industry as we know it will likely be dead within 2 years. Very dire indeed here. And these are his solutions. He says $3.99 comics. I would say $2.99, but we have increased rents, labor, and insurance costs to cover. So $3.99, $4.99, and more is a non-starter with too many fans. I think that is 100% accurate, especially for the content that you are currently getting, which is, for the most part, garbage. Fewer covers. I know this will get some pushback from every corner, but without a focus, it's all about the value of the covers and not what's between them. Max of 2 covers while you're at it. Give us a hook to sell, not just another convention commission piece with no indication of what's inside the comic it covers. I agree. I think a lot of it, there's just way too many covers. And don't get me wrong, I like some of my variant covers and things like that. But at the end of the day, it's about what's in between the cover, right? That's what really should be selling your comic. Obviously, there are people who are just going to buy a comic for a cover, but I don't know how many of those people there are. I think most people are buying comics to actually read them, or at least put them in a stack where they intend to read them. Number 3, editors who are editors. Too many stories are lackluster and agenda driven. Too many covers are con sketch drivel with no sales point. And too much interior art is amateurish. It's clear neither Marvel nor DC has a publishing plan beyond the current reboot. Yeah, I will agree with that. Most of the covers look way better than the interior art, and they don't actually tell you anything about what you're going to be reading about. And sometimes it feels like false advertising as a reader. And it's like, well, this looked really good. You open it up and it's like, holy smokes, this is absolutely crap. And I think a lot of people are like, fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, shame on you. And then they don't get fooled the third time. The characters are iconic for a reason. The movies never got traction until they leaned into what made the characters decades-long successes. Change is good for story, but inevitably you need to touch base with what brought them. Gender swap, sexual orientation changes, and outright changes to who's in the suit are short-term headline grabbers, but without long-term sales, with very few exceptions. I think we've seen that. We just talked about the Alan Scott Green Lantern book, not in the top 50 sales. And then you can look at Tom Taylor's gay Superman book, clearly petered out, and they eventually canceled it. All of those books go the same way. They just absolutely decline. And it's not even when you're doing gender swaps or sexual orientation changes. You have stuff from like Ta-Nehisi Coates, and he just is inserting ridiculous analogies and allegories into Red Skull and Captain America, and that book sales just absolutely tanked as well. So you have that onto it too. Just overall, just trash quality. Number 5, tell stories without proselytizing. I've beat this drum for a decade and more, but here we are chasing away a large portion of our customer base with every new tale as they want entertainment, not a serialized sermon. I agree, but these people can't do that. The people that are currently in charge are unable to do that. They are so bought into the vision, and they clearly don't have editors, as noted by point 3, to rein them in or tell them no or fire them or find actual talented writers that won't do this. So that implies that their editors are all in on it too. 6, limited new characters. Fresh blood is good, but it's become obvious that characters aren't organic to stories. They're shoehorned in for a bump in sales. Dance with who brung you, as the saying goes. 7, I'd ask for minimum advertised price, but we're not in that world anymore. You made deals with the devil, which is also on you. And then number 8, here's the big one. Discount and shipping. Marvel and DC screw this market. So if you want to continue to have people dumb enough to labor 60 hours a week for poverty wages to sell and advocate your precious IPs, you need to invest in that market. You strip mined that word again, though it applies to precisely all the cash out of the direct market, and retailers are bleeding from the bone. We need your investment or this market goes away. No, you can't just sell online, as the minimum production costs won't be met with online only. Investment means putting books on stands at a cost to you, not the people with the highest per issue cost. I think he's probably right that we're seeing that with theaters. They try to bypass theaters, and that clearly failed abysmally. And they also tried to bypass the linear television model. That also failed as well. I think maybe Netflix is the only one who's able to do that. But even then, they are trying to re-engage the classic television model by having an ad tier, which all of the major studios have as well. HBO, or I guess it's Max now, and Disney Plus has it as well. I'm not sure about Peacock or Paramount Plus. I'm not familiar really with those services, but I'm sure they're working on it as well. So this is the actual plan, because he doesn't think that they're going to actually enact any of those solutions that are needed. But he says, set a minimum for each title by store. Every issue over that minimum is sold to brick and mortar retailers for 60 cents. This puts books on stands, minimizes costs to retailers, and helps print runs. And then he says, why should you listen to any of this? Because your livelihood is tethered to the retail community. Rome is on fire. Fiddle or get on the phone with some of your key retail partners and find out what it's like out here, but be prepared for some ugly stories. Without some immediate action, I see 25% of the retail stores closing at the end of first quarter 2024. So Phil Boyle is raising the alarm on the comic book industry. We'll see what happens. He doesn't seem optimistic on the fact that Marvel or DC will listen. I'm not optimistic either. We've seen this. We've seen them just kind of ignore everyone raising alarms for the better part of a decade, and they have just ignored it and doubled down on ignoring it and doubled down on their absolutely atrocious plan, which is to indoctrinate people through the comic book medium. And fortunately, people are rejecting it, so not a lot of people are really actually getting indoctrinated through it. But let me know what you make of what Phil Boyle had to say here. I do think that this is a massive, massive warning shot across the bow to Marvel and DC that the retail market is indeed suffering.
Subscribe for more.